myself here. Welcome, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. I've got about 30 slides or so to go through. In the interest, since we're going to be recording this webinar today, I would, ask that we please hold questions until the end, just in case somebody's watching this after the fact. At least they can get through the presentation. So please write down your questions, and we can take care of them at the end of the session here. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my video, and we'll go ahead and get this going. Again, welcome. This is the Arizona Water Protection Fund Grant Application Workshop for fiscal year 2026. Again, my name is Ruben Teran, and I'm the Executive Director for the Water Protection Fund Program based out of the Arizona Department of Water Resources. Okay, so for those that are not familiar with the purpose of the Water Protection Fund, it is a competitive state grant program that essentially provides funding to protect water quality, quantity, to maintain, enhance, and restore river and riparian resources, and also provides funding for projects that benefit fish and wildlife that are dependent on these important resources. And that is our statutory purpose through ARS 452101. So some overall program objectives. We want to provide measurable benefits to water resources of Arizona through broad-based local support. You will find throughout the presentation that we do emphasize local solutions. And again, you as the members of the public would be the ones that are helping us to you tell us what you would like to do for programs, again, and getting that local support within the state and your community. We'd like to provide positive examples for other similar type projects, again, be used as a resource. All of our applications, our project final reports, all the data that we collect is all available for the public through public record request. The public can request these resources. So again, we have resources for you guys to use as reference for similar type projects. We'd like to advance the field of water conservation and riparian restoration in Arizona, and also increase public awareness of the function and value of riparian resources. And a lot of this is done through public outreach through the projects themselves. So some fundamental principles of the program. As I stated earlier, the Water Protection Fund supports locally acceptable solutions rather than having the state or staff or our commission dictate specific projects, measures, priorities, or areas of concern. Again, the program likes to see bottom-up approach rather than top-down solution to river and riparian maintenance, enhancement, and restoration issues. The Water Protection Fund commissions, I mentioned them, is a priority is to fund high-quality on-the-ground solutions, and I'll go into just a quick slide on the Water Protection Fund Commission, since they do oversee the policies and management of this program. And being that the commission likes to see on-the-ground projects, a majority of the funds that we have allocated to the program are allocated for capital projects, which just means essentially something done on the ground. So I'll touch on some project guidelines as we get going here, and you're thinking about the projects that you guys would like to implement. I'd like to say on this slide, if your project fits generally into one of these categories, it's looking pretty good that you'll be eligible to apply for this funding. So the program supports projects that demonstrate direct benefits to perennial or intermittent rivers or streams, projects that protect or restore native riparian vegetation and habitat, projects that restore proper hydrologic condition and functions, for example, erosion control structures, check dams, things like that. Restoration or projects that restore stream geomorphology and or channel characteristics, projects that restore wetlands or backwaters. Something new that the commission brought in several years ago was improving watershed conditions using forest and or near stream restoration treatments that improve water quality or increase water quantity. And examples of this are a use of like prescribed fires, forest thinning projects, brush control, etc. And as I mentioned, as part of the overall program purpose, projects that restore habitat needs for fish and wildlife that are dependent on these resources are supported, and any projects that decrease the negative impacts of non-native species to riparian areas, for example, salt cedar, tamarisk removal, Russian olive, projects like that. Okay, so this year the Commission will be looking or awarding funding under 3 different categories we have open. So the first, as I mentioned, is capital projects, and these are on-the-ground measures that ultimately result in a downstream benefit to maintain and enhance river and riparian resources, again, including projects that benefit fish and wildlife. The acquisition of Central Arizona Project water or effluent to restore or maintain river and riparian sources is considered a capital project. Given the state of things on the Colorado River, we haven't had any of these types of projects where people had purchased CAP water for that. But in the earlier days of the program, when that was going on, that was the Commission did consider that a capital project. So we still have it on there. They haven't taken away that ability to do that. The other capital project that we would look at is the feasibility of design studies. Again, this is to investigate the feasibility of implementing a specific capital project, and criteria that is that the applicant has to have control and tenure of the project area. So let's say you have a big stream restoration project you're planning, but you wanted to do kind of like you needed to go collect data, you needed to go do some monitoring, and just have the bigger project. So at the end of the day, you would have, like, as a deliverable of these feasibility studies, you'd have a project implementation plan that you can implement. You'd have a project budget. You might have gone through and done all your environmental compliance or permitting requirements up front. So again, it would be kind of that. Sometimes folks need that extra help to see if it's even feasible to implement the bigger project that they're looking at. So in that instance, the Commission would look at this as a capital project and would be eligible for funding. The Commission is also looking at funding research projects. Again, these are innovative research and data collection efforts which are related to the goals and purpose of the fund. Again, if you can demonstrate innovative river and riparian restoration or projects that might benefit the wildlife, those are the type of research projects that the Commission would support. Caveat to that is that the amount of funding available for that is limited to 5% of the funds that we received in any fiscal year, and I'll go into that in a little bit more. The Commission also does support water conservation projects, and again, these are measures which develop or promote programs designed to conserve water for the purposes related to the fund. And again, it's always tying back to how is your conservation project going to be benefiting river and riparian resources or dependent wildlife resources. Caveats are that the project must be located outside of all the Arizona Department of Water Resources active management areas. The reason for that is that the AMAs or active management areas do have their own conservation programs and goals. So again, the statutory thought behind this was to provide a measure for water conservation outside of the AMAs for the purposes of the program. Okay, on to eligibility. So the eligibility is wide open. Any person, organization, local, state, or tribal agency, tribal entity, political subdivision of Arizona may submit a request for funding for the Water Protection Fund. One thing to keep in mind is that federal agencies are not eligible to receive funding. However, funding can be awarded to projects that are implemented on federal lands. So we've had some instances where either like funding folks like for the Forest Service, for example, are groups or organizations that are affiliated with them that are not necessarily the federal agency, but kind of a fiduciary source, or non-government organizations will implement, be the grantee on that part, but do work on federal lands. So just one thing to keep in mind if you're looking to do anything on federal lands, that the federal agencies themselves cannot be the applicants and cannot receive the award or be paid directly as a grantee or have a contract with that. Some requirements for eligibility. You must have legal and physical access and authority to implement the project. Again, like I was saying earlier, a lot of projects are done on lands that folks don't own unless you're a private landowner. It's a different situation. But again, in the projects like on state trust lands, on federal lands, county-owned lands, for example, if you are not the land management entity or owner, again, you must have physical access to do that, and that's usually through cooperative agreements. So wherever you're planning to work, just make sure you work with the land owners, and in your application, I would strongly suggest you include at least a letter of support from that entity, just to make sure that everybody's on board and they're aware of the project you're going to be proposing. If you're going to be using any water on the project, whether it be groundwater from wells, surface water diversions, anything like that, you must provide documentation that it is legally and physically available for you to use for the stated purpose. You must demonstrate that vital partnerships, funding, project site access, as I mentioned earlier, have been committed at the time of the application, or submit letters of support with the plan to obtain these elements prior to a grant award. And one thing that we really need to keep aware of, the last bullet there, is administrative costs must be limited to 5% of the total implementation funds requested. This is a statutory requirement that, we know and we understand, overhead administrative costs, can be from 15 to 20% in some instances. Per statute, we are limited to 5%, to allow up to 5% of any administrative costs for project costs. And again, that was more for the fact that we're getting more actual capital dollars on the ground than overhead and unseen costs. So when we do process reimbursement requests, when we're looking at the grant application budget, I'm ensuring that those administrative limits are kept. Okay, so I'll go into some ineligible applications. So in accordance with state statutes, so things by law we cannot fund, the Water Protection Fund cannot support, are purchases of real property or conservation easements, projects that are located outside of the state of Arizona, any project that includes the planting of mesquite, tamarisk, or other non-native high water use trees that consume a water that is detrimental to conservation efforts, remedial actions under CERCLA, the Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation and Liability Act, or remedial actions under the Water Quality Assurance Revolving Fund. A little back to research projects. If there are projects with a funding request in excess of 5% of the total funds received for fiscal year 2026, right now, at least in the governor's executive budget, there was a line item funding for the program of $750,000 appropriation for the program. That would be the 5% of that. So any project, any research projects that we get could not exceed this approximately $37,000. Again, that number hasn't been set because the budget isn't out yet, but right now we're anticipating, if that does go through, research projects would be limited to approximately $37,500. And again, ineligible applications for water conservation programs within an active management area, as I had mentioned before. So some more criteria for ineligible applications based on commission policies. If there are projects that are located in areas with elevated levels of environmental contamination, they are not eligible. Or projects that are required as a result of a legal action by a regulatory agency. So again, if you got the entity got fined or something that had to do as a mitigation, somewhere else to rectify something they did elsewhere, we can't use water protection funds to meet your legal actions that you may have to do yourself. And any projects designed to meet wastewater treatment requirements, we are not allowed to fund those. However, proposed projects that create or sustain riparian habitat using treated effluent or recycled water that already meets and exceeds relevant state or federal standards may be considered, as long as the project meets the requirements of our statute, which is, again, as long as we can demonstrate that it benefits river and riparian resources or wildlife associated with those resources. Here's a few more ineligible things with commission policy. So generally the commission does not fund facility or basin groundwater recharge or recovery projects. However, passive recharge projects, things just like check dams, erosion control structures, brush control, are considered eligible under the program. And projects that are failing to document evidence of control and tenure of land or evidence of the physical and legal availability of water are ineligible for funding. Okay, so I'll touch briefly on the Water Protection Fund Commission. I mentioned them at the beginning of the talk here. So the Water Protection Fund Commission, again, they provide the policy and guidance of the overall Water Protection Fund program. They are a publicly appointed board. They represent various interests across the state, Central Arizona Project, natural resource conservation districts. We have a tribal representative on here, Salt River Project. The first at least 9 names down here are the voting members. So those are the folks that would make the actual funding decisions for the program and guide the policy and the overall, attend the meetings, the commission meetings. They are all public meetings. The public is always welcome to attend and participate in our meetings. And the last 4 names here, the director for the Department of Water Resources, state land commissioner, and 2 legislative seats. Those are non-voting ex officio members, which they're still part of the commission, but they don't vote or provide any input on the project selection part of it. You can see the appointing authorities on the right and the statutory category represented there in the middle column. Okay, so we'll get into a few commission priorities, things that they look at when considering and evaluating applications. So we do have some statutory priorities that the commission should be looking at. And again, those are projects that directly benefit perennial or intermittent rivers or streams, or that otherwise increase the supply of water. Their priority projects would be projects that provide matching monies or assets of comparable value, including in-kind contributions from other sources. So again, the commission likes to see that either the applicant or partners are helping to support the project that's going to be put on the ground, and we have some input and support from the grantee or the applicant. One thing to note on that matching funds is that with Water Protection Fund program, matching funds are not required for our program, so just keep that in mind. But the commission does like to see that if there are, that there's other people that support and helping us cost share the projects that we do implement. A couple other priorities, if you provide for the continued maintenance and portion of the river and stream and associated riparian habitat that are enhanced by the project. So again, this is looking at long-term commitment. If you own the land or you're partnering with somebody else on somebody else's land, is there a commitment to maintain the infrastructure and assets and benefits that we're putting on the land? That if they see that in the application, that is a priority for them that they like to see. And as I mentioned earlier, projects that include broad-based local involvement are really big for the commission. They like to see that, again, your neighbors, your local conservation groups, the public is really supportive of your project. And as part of the application process, we do, you are welcome to submit letters of support from everybody. Whoever you can get letters of support for your project, the commission likes to see that the project that they're proposing is something that appeals to the general public in a broad fashion and is supported. So a few other commission priorities, again, just going with the theme of the program, projects that maintain and restore river and stream and riparian resources and headwater streams and other watersheds, upper watersheds that will provide direct improvements to water quality and or increase water quantity. So again, these would be upper watershed restoration projects. The statutory kind of had the intermittent perennial streams, but the commission does also support and like to see projects that are done in the headwater streams. Projects that address degraded watershed health conditions or impacts to perennial streams through the implementation of scientifically based restoration projects. So again, this would be any, kind of the upper forest thinning project, something that's assessing degraded watershed health. And if for the purposes of water conservation projects, projects where the applicant estimates the water increase and or savings and how that estimate was determined. And again, in your application, if you could find that information, put it in there to at least try to justify and demonstrate what the water conservation project you're doing in your area would benefit rivers and riparian resources. All right, switching gears here. So I'm going to go over the application content requirements. Hopefully, if you haven't yet, but hopefully you were able to at least see or start looking at the grant application manual. The next slides I'm going to be going through are going to highlight some of the sections in there. So hopefully you can get that. It's on our website. It was, it's on our website right now, the Water Protection Fund website, and I'll show you where all that stuff is here at the end of the talk as well. So a couple important notes for this fiscal year's grant cycle. The applications are only being accepted electronically via the eCivis grant management software system. I think it's changing its name to eUnit Solutions. So you might see either one or both of those names. Direct link will be provided. Has been provided on the grant cycle page. And again, I'll show you where all that information is located so you can find the solicitation. If you have not used the eCivis program, just note that you're going to need to create a user account. Kind of like everything these days, you'll have to create a login account that'll take you into your portal, and it'll be used to where you would upload all your information and get your application put together and submitted electronically that way. In the back of the grant application manual, in Appendix B, I do have a submission user's guide as reference, but if you are anytime from now until the applications are due, if you have any questions regarding eCivis, if you have any questions about the grant application process, if you want to talk about your project, you have questions about, hey, would this fit? Can we do this? Can we do that? I do make myself available by appointment to meet with you. We can set up an hour, half-hour time to discuss your project, or if you're having any issues logging into the system or how to find things, please call me. I'm here to help you guys get your applications pulled together and at least give you some guidance on things with the program. So again, I will be a resource for you during the entire application process. So don't hesitate to call me if you have questions for anything as we move forward in this application process. The last piece of this, grant applications will need to be developed electronically or converted to electronic format, for example, scanned and uploaded into the eCivis application portal. So again, and I'll show you this when we get into the portal thing. But yeah, we could upload any documents in there. I think we accept, Excel files, Word documents, PDF, photo files, things like that. So as you're developing your application, there might be some forms, like for example, like the application cover form needs to be signed by the applicant or their authorized entity. Sometimes those are signed and people scan those or take a picture of it, so you have that picture. Again, we can't it just has to be signed or have some reference of signature on there. So like that would be something you might have to scan or take a picture and upload that application cover page. Just be aware of that. There's only maybe 2 forms on there. SAD and the State Historic Preservation Office forms, I think, that actually have to have a signature on the page itself. but everything else can be uploaded from whatever files you have, electronic files you have on your computer. So if you, I strongly recommend referencing page 12 on the application, inside the grant application manual. That includes all the components that are required, and I've set up the eCivis application portal that something has to be submitted in each of those content fields, or you won't be able to submit your application. Again, page 12, it's a full page list of all the different documents that that are there. And now, again, all eCivis forms are now upload fields. And in the last few years, I had some fields that were text box. So, folks, it was just a long text box. So folks can go and just type in some additional information. But right this year, I made it where everything is now uploadable. So it's easier to track and keep track of what is being submitted under each of the application categories. So for your reference, I have created some electronic forms and templates that are available in Microsoft Word or Excel format. Again, you can convert those to whatever word processing format or table format that you'd like. But again, these are just templates. We got the application cover page, executive summary, project overview, project location, and environmental contaminant information, scope of work, budget templates, the state historic office review forms, and a key personnel template. Continuing that list, these are some of the newer ones that I've added: a narrative for obtaining permission and or site access template that used just to be a form or a text box field, but I wanted it to have, you can type up a paragraph or two, whatever you need to, but just something that's uploadable that I know specifically that is what that application field has been covered. Again, as I stated earlier, their letters matching funds, are not required. But some projects, they don't have matching funds, or there may be instances where there are no letters of community support or no matching funds, or for instance, you're not even going to be using water on the projects, like a forest thinning project or something. So I just did create a real simple template that just says that, no water will be used, or we don't have any letters of support, or we don't have any matching or cost share funds for this project. Again, just to flag me and the commission as they're reviewing this, that you've looked at that application criteria section, and if it's not applicable, essentially it's easier to find rather than trying to find it in a text field somewhere in the application packet. So the eCivis application portal allows applicants to submit all information in the sequence provided in the contents overview. So again, reference back to page 12, everything is kind of lined out in that order. As I mentioned earlier, the grant application cover page and the State Historic Preservation Office forms must be signed by a legally authorized person or entity and uploaded into eCivis. So again, this might be something where you have to sign it and maybe scan it to PDF, or sign it, take a picture of it so you have the file, or the file with the signature on there. And the last piece here, the application deadline is Friday, August 15th at 11:59. At that time, the application portal will be shut down. So again, if you have any questions or any issues getting into the program or something before that date, please contact me, and I'm here to help you out. Okay, as I mentioned previously as well, I will be giving a quick demonstration on how to use eCivis and what it's going to look like if you haven't used it before. So yeah, when we're done, we can probably stop the recording, and I'll just go through it. If you have any questions, we can talk about that and answer questions as well. Okay, so what happens after you submit your application? So we do have a pretty extensive evaluation process. There are initial review and completeness for consistency with state statutes and commission policies. Essentially, is a project eligible for funding consideration? And in the grant application manual on pages 5 or 6, there's a couple bullets in there, things that I will be looking for to make sure that we've met these criteria before the application can move forward. I will provide the staff review according to the evaluation criteria outlined in the grant application manual on pages 8 through 10. So depending if it's a capital project or a research project, we do have some different criteria in there. So I guess one strong suggestion I'd make to you is, as you're developing your application, keep those criteria in mind. And it'd be helpful to somewhere in the application, including a paragraph or a little write-up on to make sure that you hit those criteria somewhere in the application. Again, that's what I'm looking for as I'm going through and give at least my staff review on that. There may be instances where I do request outside review by other state or federal agencies and or interested local governments as necessary. Again, if there's something that might be potential for endangered species, endangered species interactions or something we might need to know about, we might reach out as and request, maybe a review from either the Fish and Wildlife Service, Arizona Game and Fish Department. If there's water quality stuff, depending on the issue, just to make sure that, if there's anything we need to be aware of, if there's any like surface water rights or water right issues that we might need to look into a little bit further, we might request review from those programs as well within the Department of Water Resources. Again, that's only if necessary. And as part of the evaluation, the individual Water Protection Fund commissioners do review each of the applications. They may have their own, based on their backgrounds and what they're interested in, they may have their own personal criteria of what they look at. They do, again, I do provide you, the applicant and the commission, my written staff review based on the criteria that I noted on pages 8 through 10. And the commission may look at that. They do get it. They may consider it, but they may have their own criteria as a board member, as a publicly appointed official, on projects that they like and things that they like to see in the application. So I just want to keep in mind that my staff review is there and they can look at it, but they also have their own, might have their own thoughts on things that they see as priorities from their perspective. So these are the main bullet points on the criteria. I'll go over these within the manual. There are a few more sub bullets under each of these categories, but just from the broader perspective, when I'm evaluating capital and water conservation projects, again, does a project enhance, maintain, or restore river, stream, and riparian resources? Does a project benefit fish and wildlife resources? Is it feasible? And again, there's other criteria under the feasibility, but is just looking at the feasibility, overall feasibility of the project, and would it be able to be implemented? Is there a monitoring component for it? Monitoring, generally isn't required for the program, but sometimes projects do rate a little bit higher in the evaluation if there's some form of monitoring tied to it. Again, if you're doing something on the ground, we're hoping that applicants would like to see and demonstrate how their project is benefiting the land, the stream courses. So usually there's a monitoring component tied to that. Some more applications, projects, it might have a couple of years, like one first year, second year implementation, and then another 2 years of post restoration monitoring to, again, gain results and learn something from the actions that you did. And a few other considerations on there, some examples being like, are there matching dollars provided with the application? Again, it's not required, but just something to consider. Does it have broad-based local support? Things like that are listed, bulleted in the application manual, but those would be other considerations that we look at from an evaluation standpoint. Okay, for research projects, again, a little bit different criteria. Kind of the broad base is research applicable to the stated program goals. Does the application demonstrate the use of the scientific method? Does the proposal include some form of publication as a deliverable and or commitment to some form of public presentation? Again, like I mentioned in the beginning, trying to, a goal of this program is to, have data available for the public. And is there a public education component? Can we inform the public about the benefits of riparian habitats. So again, this is just something we'd look at as a evaluation criteria on that. The feasibility, again, looking at what you're trying to do and is it feasible to implement the project as a whole. Research results translatable. You know, can somebody take this data that you're using or this research you're doing and apply it to something else? Is it going to help enhance and further the knowledge of riparian restoration and understanding in this field? Again, other considerations, same thing, matching funds, broad-based local support, things like that. Okay, I'll go into some general information for this year. So one thing to keep in mind that there will be no scope of work changes allowed during the application process. So again, once you hit the submit button and your application is, whatever's on paper is what the commission will be evaluating and considering as part of the funding process and application evaluation process. Just note that depending on what the scope is, you know, when the commission makes their grant awards at their meeting, you know, there may be some really changes to the scope, but some things that might be added through staff review if we found that, hey, we need to include X, Y, and Z as part of this to make the application whole. We need these permits included as part of the scope of work, or these environmental clearances need to be obtained, or we need some other deliverables. I might put in some recommendations for the commission to consider during the voting award. So that's the only time that not really the scope of work, but some things that might be added to the project. You know, if the commission does select that project for funding. The next bullet here, applicant has the option to present to the commission up to 20 minutes. So this would be in our November timeframe. I would strongly suggest that if you do have if you do submit an application, that you would take this opportunity to present to the commission. Again, it's kind of the last time to showcase your project to the commission. And this is all done during a public meeting. So again, if the commission has any questions, you know, from staff, clarifying questions based on my staff review, or, you know, you have the opportunity to maybe clarify some of my findings from my staff review in that public forum, you have a chance to meet the commission and have that dialogue back and forth about your project and get any other clarifying questions or anything added. I think it's just a unique process for our program that the public can present their application to the commission and just have that that interaction for at least up to 20-30 minutes on your individual application. Okay, so again, we usually have 2 meetings in November. The first one would be applicant presentations, and then our second meeting would be the actual grant awards, where the commission would make those funding award recommendations. And one thing to keep in mind, that if the commission did select your application for funding, the grant award does not authorize immediate expenditure of funds. Payments are made to grantees on an actual cost reimbursement basis. So essentially, it's not, if you had a $250,000 award, you know, the Water Protection Fund or the state wouldn't just write you a blank check and say, here's $250,000, go get your project done. We would need to write an actual contract or agreement based on your application and the scope of work, deliverables, deliverable due dates, and prices for each of the tasks to be completed. So again, you as the applicant or the grantee at that point would have to have that cash flow in hand. If you need to go buy materials, if you need to hire contractors or consultants, or go do any of the work, you would pay for that up front. And then, you know, when it's all done and you submit your deliverable, whether it be a restoration completion report, it'd be monitoring or whatever, you would submit that along with your reimbursement request. We'd make sure that, you know, the work was completed, and we'd audit the costs, all your receipts, keep copies of all your receipts, your invoices, any expenditures that you made for buying supplies, gloves, tools, things like that. You would need to submit documents of those, and then have those all costs reimbursed to you. So just one thing is cash flow. as an applicant. That again, this is cost reimbursement for our program. And the commission is not liable for any costs or work prior to a fully executed contract/agreement. And one thing that we do offer as part of this program is that there is an optional 20% advance that you may request. And there's a little checkbox on the cover page, I think it's right above the signature page, that if you did want or did need the opportunity to request 20% of your grant award, as long as that box is checked when we write the agreement, we can write that into the scope of work. So again, that's a little bit of seed money to get you guys going. So keep that in mind. It's grantees, a lot of grantees take advantage of that. The only caveat I say to that is that we can provide you the 20% advance, and when you for your next reimbursement request, you would have to account for that 20%, and then everything automatically reverts back to a cost reimbursement basis. So just keep that in mind. And if you have any questions about that, where you're developing an application or something like that, we can talk a little bit more, but there is at least an opportunity to get some seed money started for your project. And the last bullet here, the grant award contracts do contain general provisions that start on they're identified on page 38, the grant application manual. And these are just standard for at least our program, and then to general provisions for the agreement. So these are things that we have to include in there. So these, I think there's like 20 or so different provisions, just relating to just all manners of for state based contracts. So please, I would strongly recommend you have your legal authority, if you have a lawyer, or at least your management team, look over those provisions and to make sure they're okay with all the general provisions in there as part of that are required as part of our grant award contracts. So a few more notes here. Contracts and agreements, they may extend up to 5 years. Again, some folks do take advantage of that. Like I said earlier, if they wanted to spend first year getting all the environmental permits and clearances, writing the plans, getting all that stuff together, implementing in years 2 and 3, for example, and then having another year for post restoration monitoring. That's an option like that. We do have had some projects in the past where something had happened. Again, since you're doing work on the ground, in nature, circumstances do come up. We've had a project, for example, where a wildfire came in, and the part of the project area, or at least the upper watershed portions, burned, and they couldn't get into the project area for like a year and a half, almost 2 years. The commission understood that. They asked for, I think the grant was originally for maybe a 3-year project they had written it out for, but just because there was some situations or some circumstances that were beyond our control, we were able to extend that up to the 5 years, and the grantee was able to complete the project and do the work in that time frame. So that's the commission just like to move anything else past 5 years. So again, just depending on the scope of work, what you're trying to do, if you can make it fit within 5 years, that'd be great. Contract amendments are permitted after commission approval, depending on what the scope is. If there's a major change in the scope of work, obviously those would all need to be reviewed and approved by the commission. In instances, there might be something happened in the funding, and more funding need to be requested from the commission. We've had those instances come in where we have the applicants come in to explain the situation, and the commission would have to make that decision if they wanted to add money to a contract or something. But again, we would have to get the commission's approval before we and get that done before we can write an amendment. So just keep that in mind. After the grant award is signed, if you want anything changed, we'd have to get commission approval on that. As part of the general provision that I mentioned earlier in our contract, there is a long-term maintenance of the project. The commission, again, has 20 years written in the provisions. So just keep that in mind, depending on if you are the landowner, land manager, or a group that's working with folks, that we do require that as part of our contracts. Required project site access for inspection and evaluation by staff and or the commission. So again, we just put that in there, as I think those are part of the provisions as well. You know, that we have the commission has the right to, or staff has to go to the right to go look at the project and see where dollars are being spent and making sure the work is getting completed as stated. Adequate accounting practices and record keeping is necessary. I don't want to stress this enough that we you're counting all the, again, keeping all the receipts and all the invoices, documenting all the project reports, and everything for the accounting process. We have to keep those on file for a minimum of 5 years as part of our records retention process. So again, there's instances where we could get audited. If there was an audit for something, you know, we'd have to provide all those records, those accounting records, for that. So just keep in mind to keep your records handy, keep them neat. Part of the requirements for our project is the submittal of all data, results, and research gained from all the projects. Again, because we are using state funds for this, as I stated earlier, having that information available for the public should they want to see it. You know, submit public records requests for data, for copies of project-related data, project final reports, monitoring plans, stuff like that. So we'll have that in there as well. And one of the last pieces of the grant award contract is a final presentation to the commission. So usually within 90 days of the contract expiration date, I do coordinate with our grantees and have them present at the next Water Protection Fund Commission meeting. And again, these are just like 15 to 20 minutes outline or laying out, you know, what was completed in the project, what you guys did, where you guys spent the money, and the results, and what you learned, and again, it's just a way to showcase your project and what you've learned through the project, through the grant. Again, these are all made during our public meetings as well, and again, it's just a record, and you know, again, that public outreach, letting the public know what the project was and what the funding was used for, and what we learned from it. Okay, so hopefully you've seen this. If you haven't, I'll just go over the schedule really quick here. So I did note here at the very top, the commission reserves a right to adjust the schedule if necessary. There's only one date down here that might change, and I'll get to that in a second. But so we have the grant app. We're right now here on June 11th, the second bullet down here, the application workshop. The application manuals, like I said, are available. They've been on online for like the last 2-3 weeks already. So it's there for, if you haven't seen it yet, we'll go to the website and check that out. As I mentioned earlier, pre-application consultations. You know, I am making myself available, you know, from May through August to talk with interested applicants about their project. If they have any questions, if they need help getting anything put together, navigating the application portal, things like that. Yes, please just reach out to me. I'm here to help you guys get your applications pulled together and submitted. The online submittal portal is available. I actually just got that up last week. So again, I'll show you a demo today, just what it's going to look like, so you know what to be looking for and how it works. We'll do that when we're done here. August 15th, again, is a date, the deadline date for the application. As part of our application process, we do have a 45-day public comment period. All applications that come in will be posted on the Water Protection Fund website. And we will put out public notices on that so that people can come in and provide any comments on those. That period runs from September 2nd to October 17th. During that time, I'll be reviewing the applications and pulling that together towards the end of the during this 45-day public comment period. Here's a time that sometimes we do get like letters of support for the project. So any public comments that we get, any letters of support, or things like that, I'll incorporate those into my staff review, or include the actual copies of those comments in my staff review, and again, provide it to you, the applicant, and to the commission for your reference. That'll be no later than October 24th. So the next bullet, applicant presentation to commissions, is the one I mentioned earlier, that we have about 20 minutes to, if it's optional at this point, but you can present your project to the commission. So that date, that November 5th right now, is what I have on the schedule. The commission is going to be meeting next week. We have a public meeting scheduled next week. So that, just FYI, that date might stay, that date might change depending on commission's availability to meet, to meet, have a quorum on that day. But if anything changes, that might be the date. It might stay there, it might move a week later. But so again, the commission might remove the schedule, and if you are an applicant and do have your application in, you'll definitely be notified if that date changes. But right now, at least as we're going, we're planning on November 5th, but we'll see if that changes. Following the application presentations, again, if there's something in there that one of the commissioners maybe forgot to, like went home and I should have asked them of that, we do have an opportunity for clarifying questions to the applicants from the commission, and your responses to that inquiry in writing, and that process would be facilitated through me directly. So if a commissioner did have a question about, hey, I forgot to ask about how you're implementing this X, Y, and Z, I'll reach out to you. You can provide a response, and whatever that response is, I'll formally provide that at our grant commission selection meeting on November 19th, if there was any instances that just something else needed to be clarified following the presentation. So again, on that November 19th, that date is set. That will be the commission meeting grant selections. And following that, December, I'll be writing letters notifying applicants of their funding status. If you were awarded funding or your project wasn't selected for funding, you'll be getting that in writing from me. And then beginning December 25 or January 26 is when I'll start writing the grant award contracts that I had spoken of earlier. And again, if you did get awarded, just be advised that you're not authorized to go spend money, or you can't get reimbursed for any expenses that you made prior to the execution of a grant award contract. So just keep that in mind. And I think that's all I had as far as the presentation. Thank you all for going through that. We can open up the lines. Lizette, if anybody has any questions, I don't know if there's I think we have a chat feature on there, but if somebody just wants to chime out, I don't know if you can raise your hand on the, yeah, I think we do have a raise your hand button on the,
Cassie raised their hand.
Cassie, okay, hi. Yeah, I can't see that. So yeah, just tell me if you see something like that.
Yeah. Hi, thank you so much for accepting questions. I have a couple of them, if I may be so bold. You noted that there isn't any reimbursement until the end of the project. Is that at the end of when the project is completed, or could we seek reimbursement through stages of completion?
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry if that was, I hope I didn't say that it was until the end of the project. No, so within the, you can request reimbursement throughout the grant, throughout the project. And you would do that, based on your scope of work. So let's say you have project implementation plans you want to do, and they're due, 6 months from now. You can write a deliverable due date, and that would be like your reimbursement date. So you kind of plan out your entity's needs for reimbursement based on the scope of work and deliverables that you would supply to meet that, to meet your cash flow needs. So yeah, I hope I didn't state that you had to wait till the end of the period. No, this is reimbursable throughout the entire grant period. So the 2, 3, 4 years, whatever it is. Yeah, and as we're negotiating the scope of work, I'll definitely be working with folks and just making sure that they can see how, what their tasks look like. And as you're developing your budget and your scope of work, your tasks, you can kind of be thinking about that. How often you need to get reimbursed. Typically, we see projects getting reimbursed, like every 6 months. Semi-annual, there'd be like a progress report and a reimbursement request coming in every 6 months. Some like smaller organizations, or maybe maybe private landowners don't have that ability. Maybe they might ask for quarterly progress reports or something where they'd be requesting reimbursements quarterly. Some other entities might do annual reports. So it all just depends on the scope and what you're doing and how your cash flow looks. But without a more long-winded answer, yeah, you can reimburse throughout the entire project period. So just work that into your budget. Yes. I think
Sarah also had a question. It says, would infrastructure improvements such as the installation of automated gates and metering structures to better control water flow be considered an eligible project type if they enhance water use efficiency, support water management and planning, and improve flow data collection?
I guess that would depend on if you're looking from a municipal setting of water metering. That might I'd probably have to look into the specifics on that a little bit more, but if unless it's directly related to benefiting a river or stream or riparian resources or habitat or benefiting fish and wildlife, yeah, I'm not sure what you would be metering on or from. You know, if you're doing water conservation within a city or a town or something like that, that might not fit within the program. But if it's you're metering water to get it out back into the stream channels or something like that, if you can tie that benefit to river and riparian resources and how it's benefiting that, you know, that might be considered eligible. So yeah, if that didn't really answer your question, feel free to contact me, call me, and we can talk about your project a little bit more to see if or how that type of project might be in there. But just off the, you know, just gut feeling right now, I'm not sure if that would fit into the scope of the program. But again, I'd have to see what the context is as a whole.
Okay, the other question is from Caitlin. Thank you for the presentation. Apologies if I missed this. What is the amount of funding availability this year? And what is the minimum maximum amount for request?
Okay, great questions. So just one thing that's the commission has never really put out, you know, like we have $10 million available, we have $10,000 available. Our budget right now has been pretty tight. The commission is able to award funding through our unobligated fund balance. So right now, I think generally we have about probably about $500,000 to $600,000 of unobligated dollars in the account, in our program account. You know, we are anticipating a deposit. Again, it's all based on what if we get funding this year through the legislature in our budget. But we're expecting, you know, $750,000 deposit into the program. So based on all of that information, you know, right before we go into the voting meeting, I'll be giving the commission a target budget. You know, we are anticipating probably about that amount that we're getting in, $750,000, maybe $800,000 available for grants. But again, that dollar figure could change based on just if we get that funding into our program or not. So yeah, I apologize. You know, I didn't really give a funding amount, but at least right now, at least on the solicitation, the amount that I had put on there is $750,000, and that's because that's what we're getting into, or anticipated to be getting into our program as an appropriation this year. So that plus whatever we have unobligated right now, minus operating costs for the program for the year is kind of the target budget we'd be looking at. So, and I didn't really answer your question, but you kind of see how we're working there. As far as minimum and maximums with our program, yeah, there is no minimum and there is no maximum request that you can make. We've had grants funded for $20,000, $30,000 up to $1 million in previous years. So yeah, I would just, you know, if you have cost share dollars, you know, and you can just stretch out, you know, whatever funding that you do have and support it with water protection fund dollars, you know, ask for what you need is pretty much what I would say. because if you can only fund a little bit of a project, fund half the project, are you going to get the results that you want or the project that you want? So, but yeah, I also leave that to you as an applicant, how you want to approach that. But again, yeah, there's no minimum, no maximum. Just keep in mind that it is a competitive grant program. So, there may be instances somebody's, requesting $600,000 and it's a great project. And we have 4 other projects, great projects that are, only asking for maybe $120,000 each or something. The commission has to consider the value and how they want to spend those dollars. So again, you're competing against other applicants since it is a competitive grant program. So just another thing to keep in mind. But, I would say just if you want to do the project, put your budget in there, and I would request for what you would need to get the project done. But yeah, we can talk more if you have questions later on that.
Okay, the first question from Cassie Thomas is, if we receive letters of support after the application window, how do we add them to our grant application?
Okay, yeah, so those, you would just, if you could just email, you'd be able to email those to me directly. My email address is in the solicitation. I think it's on our website. Any email correspondence that I send out always has it on there. So yeah, you can just scan those. If you get a hard copy later, you can scan it or send a picture of it or something. And I will make note in my staff review that we did get letters of support from, after the 45-day public comment period, and I attach those physically to my staff review. So I'll have my 6-page staff review or whatever, and then any letters, I'll if it's a PDF document, I'll put them all together in there. So the commission will see them, and they'll be noted in my write-up as well. So yeah, just send them to me when you get them. You just forward them on to me as you receive them.
Cassie's second question is, can the purchase of heavy machinery, such as a tractor, be covered under the grant if we are able to provide justification?
Oh, I need to actually, in the grant award, the general provisions, there is let's see if I can pull that up real quick. I thought I had it. Let me stop this presentation here. We do have a provision on, can you see my screen still? I'm kind of scrolling through. There was a provision about equipment. Yeah, so equipment 21. The grantee may not purchase equipment without the prior approval of the project manager, staff project manager, excuse me. In addition, the grantee may not purchase any equipment with a value equal to or greater than $3,000 without a prior approval of the commission. So, so yeah, keep that in mind. If it's in your application budget, that would be something that I would flag and have the commission, in my staff review, I'd make a note and said, hey, they're purchasing, as part of the application, it's here, it's written out, your justification's there. If the commission wanted to do that as part of the project of the application, they would have the opportunity to discuss it at that point. But again, this is like with the grant award contract. So yeah, just keep this provision in mind that we'd have to look about, purchase of equipment, and I don't know how much it might be, but anything with a greater value of $3,000 will need to be approved by the commission. So, and as approving your grant application and everything else that's in there, they would, they'd spell that out. If they did want to change that as part of their voting record and saying, we approve this project, however, we will not fund this, they might write that in there too. So make it like a contract condition. But right now, yeah, you're limited to $3,000 without the commission's approval. Hopefully that answers your question. But yeah, I'd have your administrators maybe look at that provision and see if they're okay with that being in there.
Thank you.
There's some other provisions in there about the equipment, safekeeping. If you have other projects moving forward, maintain it. It can be used for other projects, and it's something about a lease. There's if you're going to lease equipment from somebody or for something, we'd have to have those approvals in advance as well.
The next question is from Alexis Fisher. It says, I am considering a restoration project in a water body that is causing fish kills due to degraded water quality. The project would improve fish habitat and water quality in the water body and improve downstream river quality. Would this be eligible?
Yeah, can you repeat the first, just a blanket overlook? I think yes, that would be eligible. Can you repeat the first line, the first sentence? I didn't hear you're going to be
It says, I'm
restoring.
considering a restoration project in a water body that is causing fish kills due to degraded water quality. And the
Okay,
project would improve the fish habitat and water quality, and they want to know if that's eligible.
okay. That should be, I think it's one thing I need to look at is where's the water body? Is it relating to and or would benefit a river, stream, or riparian habitat? Or is it like a closed system, within like a city park or something like that, something that's kind of cut off from the riparian zone or something? Or
Yeah,
I'd
let
have
me just jump in there.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is, I mean, it's part of it's a big watershed, and it's kind of like a river goes through this water body, and then the water from this water body then, continues onwards. And so this
okay.
is like up at kind of, it's near the headwaters. It is higher up there, but I mean, the whole project, the focus of it would be like trying to deal with these like fish kills, which are really bad. But so then it would have a benefit of improving that, that reservoir, but then also like downstream water quality will be better because of the project. So,
okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I would see that as something that's being able to be considered within the program. So,
yeah, even though because all the text is all just about like focus on rivers. So would you recommend just kind of really trying to keep the language focused on like river improvement as opposed to like water body improvement?
Yeah. I mean, you need to make that tie. I mean, it's there. I mean, inherently, it's there, but yeah, you'd have to kind of sell it. You're not doing a lake improvement per se, but a water body, a watershed. Yeah, kind of keep it in that context. I think would be safe.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah.
That's very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the next question is from Chase. Does the requirement for the project to be outside the active management area only pertain to water conservation projects? Or are research and capital projects included in that requirement?
No. Yeah, if you're doing a research or capital project inside of NMA, yeah, that's fine. It's just the water conservation part of it. If you're doing that, we can't fund those within NMA, but capital research, yes, we do and have funded restoration projects. Like for example, we did one down on the Rio Salado here, just in downtown Phoenix, there where the Salt River comes through. We had funded some restoration work down there. Again, Phoenix, it's in the AMA, but it was a work along the Salt River channel. There a restoration project. So yeah, you can do those. It's just if you're doing something water conservation related, where you're yeah, I mean, if it's something that you're doing within the AMA and you're trying to conserve water for that, yeah, we can't fund that because the AMAs typically have funding and our programs for water conservation projects themselves. So the commission and the statutes were looking at this to do water conservation outside into the rural Arizona areas that we can support that type of work. Hopefully that answered your question.
Chase said, thank you for the information. One more question. Would a flow regime study of a river count as a research project?
Flow regime? I guess would you just be, I guess looking at the context, I don't see why it wouldn't, but if there's a scientific question you're trying to answer, or if it just be like a data collection for collecting data, are we going to be doing something with that data, or what, kind of just seeing the context of what that would be for. So
so I was wondering if the data wouldn't really be I believe, extremely useful outside of that instance. It would be used to further a project in the future for habitat restoration, riparian restoration.
Okay, so kind of like a pre-project monitoring type
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, just data
Okay.
collection to help
Baseline data.
plan.
Yeah, I mean that might that might actually fit under the, well, I wouldn't say a feasibility study part of it, but yeah, I think if you can tie that action into a future restoration project, it might be stronger, than just collecting data for the sake of collecting data. Yeah, maybe we can talk offline, or if you want to set up an appointment, if you have an idea, I'd be happy to discuss that a little bit further with you, just to kind of see how you might frame it, in that context. So.
Of course, yeah, I have your email. I see it in the chat. I'll reach out and we can set something up
Okay.
like that.
Sure.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like those are all the questions for now.
Okay, great. Good. Great questions, everyone. Thank you. All right, let me stop sharing this program here. So I'll jump into, if folks here want to kind of see what the eCivis, I really don't have anything else as far as the workshop, or as far as presenting anything else. If folks wanted to see the eCivis application and kind of see what it looks like, so you have an idea what, I can go through that now. So if you're still here, we'll take a look at something. Oh, actually, I will show you our website if you haven't been to it, so you can kind of find find all the resources on there. So let me share. Okay. Can you guys see my the Water Protection Fund website? Yep. Okay. Good. All right. So if you haven't been here, I'll navigate you real quick. So from the top row here, if you go down to FY26 grant cycle, here's all the information you would need. The application manual is this top link up here. The link to the application portal is this long link right here. Down here are some of the forms and templates that I had mentioned in the presentation, and just note that these forms do not constitute the entire application package. It's just some forms that I've provided for ease of use. And so again, some other templates that if you don't have any letters of support or matching funds or no water is going to be used, just stuff that you can put in the application so I know where to look for it, and that's made clear up front. Schedule, I went down through here. There, so yeah, that's what's on our website. So I'll go ahead and get into the link. So if you're here on the website and you click on this link, it'll take you to an external page here. Are you seeing that? I might need to share that slide. All right, might be jumping around here. Okay, are you seeing an eCivis State of Arizona solicitation there?
Yep, we see that.
Okay, all right, yes, I might have to stop sharing different tabs here. But okay, so when you log into eCivis, or when you click on that link on the Water Protection One website, it'll take you here. So this is a solicitation for the program. Just goes to the eligibility. Kind of went through that. The financial amount, $750,000. Again, that's what we're anticipating is getting as a deposit into the fund. So I put that money out there. Again, that number will be further refined as we get closer to the voting meeting and what our budget is, unobligated dollars, what we actually got appropriated, and operating costs, all taken into what the commission will be able to award for funding for that fiscal year. My contact information is here if you need my phone number or email address. And then like on the page, our website page, all the forms, at least that we have templates for and stuff, are here on the solicitation as well. So if you didn't find it there, you can always refer back to this page and find the stuff here. So if you do not have an account, an eCivis account, when you click apply here, so once you're all ready to go, you can click apply. It's probably going to take you to a new tab here. So let me stop sharing that. So it's going to take you to this login page. So if you don't have an account, this little green button here, click this button first. It will have you, again, login, name, password, set up your account for the portal. It'll get you going. And then once you're in the account, you might have to log back out and then go back to the solicitation page and click on the solicitation, apply, and then come back over here and then put in your login information to get going. It might let you go in. I can't remember how I did this last week to set up my account because I had to create a new account or log in for this new grant cycle. So when you log into the system, so you're always going to want to put in the portal login. The grants network login is more the administrators like Department of Water Resources and all the state agencies that feed into this. This is for their login for the back channels and things that they're working in there. So you're always going to want to please put in the portal login section. So when you log in, you won't see this page. It'll when you log in initially, you'll probably see this. It'll help you. It'll either ask you to create your profile or help you to verify your profile, where you can come in and just make sure all your profile, your name, your contact information and everything is, so all you really need is first name, last name, and the state that you're in there. But just create your personal applicant profile if you have one for your organization or individually. Again, it'll just say verify or update, and once you hit save and do all that, then it'll bring you to it might bring you to the home page again. It'll probably look like this, and you'll see this green button here that says create new application. So I created a test application that I'll show you, and for some reason when you do that, and it might do it to me here again, we'll see, but it's going to ask you to log in again. So it's kind of, I never understood why you have to log in several times to the same thing, but it'll get you there eventually. If it asks you for a login, yeah, see, it says here sign in with your credentials to access your application. So you'll have to kind of log in again, and I get questions like that. And again, it's always going to be the portal login. So it's so yeah, don't get discouraged if you keep seeing login screens, but I gotta do it too. Oops. Okay. So once you're back here, this is probably the screen that you're going to see when you first start. It's a profile that you're going to have to, this says action needed or something. You'll have to click on the action button or edit and go, and you'll have to save it, and then it'll say complete. So when that's all done, then you can come up here to create a new application, and it'll bring you to another screen. You put in, you kind of start creating it, and and once you're in and create it, you can save your drafts. You can come back, upload information, come back next week, do some more work, save it, save, come back and work on it. So it'll keep running until you actually hit the submit button. So after you get going here, I put it in this year that, well, through the last couple cycles, that one entity can submit multiple applications. So just sometimes I had, folks come in here and they might have 2 draft applications that they're working on, which are the same project. So just be advised that once you create a test application or you started working on one, you can find it here, and this will be the main one you'll work on. But like I say, if you had 2 applications as an organization, you want to submit 2 different projects, you can do that from the same solicitation and have both, documents going at the same time. So yeah, we'll click on this, and this is your application process. Again, just it gives you the days left remaining to submit this application. And right now it's telling me I have an active application. So you click on open. And at this point, you're in the application portal. So you type in, your name of your project, who you are, your profile information that you had completed earlier kind of gets linked to this application. So we, it's all, it doesn't show up here, but it's linked to your profile. When you submit, all that stuff kind of comes through. So I'll just go through these really quick. If you go down here, these are all the, on page 12 of the application manual, all the different sections and fields for the application requirements are all lined out here in that order, or hope I got it pretty close to it if it's not the exact order. But so yeah, all you have to do, again, we would ask that you go and create your scope of work, everything in your word processing documents or Excel files, have it all ready to go electronically. I did have some help notes above each of these for that particular section. Again, if you needed to go back and download a form or something, I put links to here so you can go back and find it, or a template. The application cover page, again, this would probably be one that you would sign or have your manager or your legal authority sign it, scan it, take a picture of it, whatever that file is, and then you can just browse through these pieces here. Select a file, browse on your computer, wherever you're storing your application. Say application cover page form, for example. It uploads it, and then it's done. So that's all you got to do. If you say, oh shoot, I messed up, I need to use a different page or something, you can just go here and delete it, and it's gone, and you can go browse and upload it again. So yeah, you just go down through each of these templates here. What was that? That was project overview. So yeah, if you had your overview template wherever it was, so that's all you do. You come down, just select it and upload it, and it's there. The little question mark says here maximum size of 1,000 megabytes, and I put as the valid file types as any. So again, if you have PDFs, if you have Excel documents, if you have JPEGs, PNG, photo files, whatever, it'll accept any file that you have. So yeah, you go down. Everything that has a star here is a required section. Scope of work, budget, mass share, cost share budget. Again, this was a required field for the application. Again, I did have a template for matching the cost share button, but again, if this field is not applicable, there's another template stating that there are no matching funds. Again, that's what I was referring to that other one. So you can go and insert that document. No matching funds are available for this project, just so you have something to upload into the field. Because if you leave it blank, it won't let you submit the application. So just be aware of that. Yeah, it'll show up red and you won't be able to upload anything. So here we've got the template right there, no matching available. Okay, you're done with that. Let's go down maps. So there are some sections here that are not required. So again, if you have project area maps, let's say you have your topographic map or something big watershed scale, you can do that or upload that one. But if you wanted to zoom in and have like a nice detailed, map on there, I left a couple spaces here on some of these ones that are just, I say continued after, that if you had another map or something else that you wanted to share or submit with the application, that you have another spot to upload something else. So there's a couple files or a couple lines here that have those. Project location maps. Again, you can put those maps if you had anything else that you wanted to include. I do have notes here that if you have many maps to submit, consider combining them into a single file, since this only allows one file to upload. That's one of the downsides of this, which is why I included other, other areas that you can, upload a couple more files. So if you have 4 or 5 PDF maps, you can just combine them into one document, submit that as one file, and then if you need more space, you've got another line down here to kind of do the same thing. Ownership, State Historic Preservation Office forms. So and with those, we do have a required form that your authorized entity needs to sign as part of the application packet and upload that one. So that one would probably be reserved for this first required field. But if you had any other related files, whether it's an archaeological report, if it's maybe a Forest Service or a state land office ARC survey, check form or something like that, and include that in the application if you wanted to. There's a couple other extra fields for, if there's photos and stuff that you need to include, you can add those here. Key personnel, same thing. I got a template on there for that. So use those project site photographs. Again, if you have many photos to submit, maybe put them all in a big PDF. And if we need more space, I left some room at the bottom to include just general miscellaneous open files. Implementation plans, existing reports and information. So again, if there's like maybe a feasibility study that was done previously, there's a watershed assessment that was done by a conservation group that you're basing your project on, that that existing related reports would be helpful to see how your project fits into something bigger. So that's where this existing plans, reports, or information related to your project would fit in. Letters of community support. Again, if you're getting them throughout the application process, and you can combine them into PDF and submit all 5 letters, 2 letters, do that. Again, if not, send those to me later. Again, if there's no letters of support at the time of the application, there's a template in there that just say, hey, we didn't get any letter of support, and maybe in that thing say we anticipate some coming in during the public comment period, and that way kind of needs me to be looking out for them. But at least you have something to submit with your application to make it complete, because it is a required field. Matching funds, kind of same thing as for letter of support. If you have it, include it. If not, say we don't have any matching funds, just so we have something to upload and you complete the required section. Same thing for project site access, permission to conduct work. Yeah, just give a little narrative paragraph. Hey, we've coordinated with Forest Service, or we're coordinated with this landowner, or working with the state land permittee on doing this. We have access, this, and we'll be getting a formal access agreement as part of the scope of work in the agreement, or maybe before a grant award contract is signed, that might be a contract condition that you have an actual signed agreement with the landowner, land manager, to do the work. So, but anyway, just something in here that just says how you're going to have access, or if you do have access, how it's going to be obtained for the project. Evidence of control and tenure of land. If you own the land, copies of the deeds to the properties. If you don't own it, who owns it and how do you have access, kind of relates to this field above. Legal water use, if you have any surface water rights, groundwater well permits, anything like that, surface water claims. This would be if you're using water for that thing, include it. Again, but if you don't have any water, you're doing a forest restoration thinning or prescribed fire or something like that, yeah, we're not going to be using water. There's a form just to fill in this and make sure you have something to submit that says, water will be used for this project, and that you've met that requirement. So the bottom, the last, I think I left like 6 or 7, just additional project information. If there's something in here that you just didn't have enough room, and you still want to get into your application, I just left some blank fields. And again, these aren't required, so if you don't put anything in them, it's fine. But just again, leaving some room to fill in if something you didn't have enough spaces up above. And that's about it. As you're working, you can click the Save Draft here. Save draft, save draft, save draft, and once all the required sections have been filled in, one of the little stars, once all those sections are done, I think this button turns green to say complete or mark complete or something like that, and you click that, and when you click that, when it's green and you're ready to go, your application gets submitted, and once it's done, you can't go back and make changes. So when you're all done and everything's ready to go and you got the green light on that, just make sure you're done and good. And yeah, when you're done, again, you can save your draft and come back. It saves it while you're working, and then you can always just close it out and then just log back in again if you're not done with it. It gives you the last time you saved it. So yeah, I think that's it on that, unless there's any questions on any of this form or process, I'll take those now. No?
I don't see any more questions in the chat.
Okay. All right. So I'll just go ahead and close this out. And when you close it out, it'll just take you back to your profile page or something. Yeah. So when you come back in again, you have to log in.
Thank you so much for your time. That was so helpful to walk us through that, and you could tell you spent a lot of time on it. Appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. So I can stop sharing my screen. So okay, we got a couple people here. So yeah, like I said, I'm available until the deadline day. So if you have any issues, concerns, questions, please reach out to me. Like I said, I'm here to help you guys put together an application and provide any assistance I can on that. Things I've learned, things you might want to avoid if there's any things like that, or just help you out through the application process. I'm as part of staff here. I'm here to help you guys until you get to the finish line. Okay.
Thank you for your time and putting this on.
All right, you're very welcome. Thank you for attending. I appreciate your all time here as well. Okay, if there's nothing else, I guess we'll be signing off here in a second. And again, you have my contact information. Please reach out if and when you have questions. And thank you for your time today. Appreciate it.